Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Three Cups and a Dash podcast. Today, we are diving into some creepy things. Michelle, who is joining us?
Well, this week we have our guest. His name is Jeremy Carr, and he is one of the hosts of Monster Lore Tour podcast. And as Stacy said, he's got some stories. So buckle up and let's get this episode started. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Three Cups and a Dash of Spirituality. Again, 3C and D for those in the know. And I am here today with Stacy.
Hello, everybody.
But we're short a cup. Carissa is not here today.
We do miss her, though.
We do miss her. Today, though, we do have a guest in studio. I would like to take a moment to introduce Jeremy Carr. He is one of the hosts of Monster Lore Tour podcast. I'm really excited you're here today, Jeremy. Thank you.
I am as well. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to it. After having Carissa on the Monster Lore Tour, I've really been looking forward to coming back on and talking to you guys about some other things. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, listening to a couple of your episodes, we're just scratching the surface here on our podcast. I mean, your variety is so wide and the things that you cover, and I've enjoyed listening.
We have a very good dynamic between me and Maz because he's very old school. He literally spends his days in the back dark corners of libraries wiping dust off books no one's picked up in decades kind of stuff. And, you know, he's very into this shamanism. He's trained in he's got a master's in psychology kind of thing. He never really got clinical with it. He was more administrative when he was working, but, you know, it's his field. And he's been into like the whole shamanism kind of angle. This is, you know, I made him my partner for a reason. He was already into this stuff. And I'm more into the kind of new technological view kind of side. You know, I'm looking at the UFOs, UAPs, the ghosts, the poltergeists. And between us, we're trying to come up with a theory of everything, a paranormal theory of everything.
I love that.
And it's leaning more and more to transdimensionality that is really behind everything that we see that is weird. We've got 84 episodes of the Monster Lore Tour now. We're actually on hiatus till the fall, but we'll be back in the fall and get that up to our 100th episode pretty quick. And there's a lot to go through. And our YouTube channel started late. So if you're just starting the Monster Lore Tour and you want to start at the beginning, YouTube's actually the best place because I remastered the audio. So our first few episodes were definitely rough on the audio. Didn't really know what I was doing yet. But YouTube's up till like episode 30 something. But on the audio platforms, we have all 84 episodes out on there. And we'll be back with more in the fall.
I can't wait to listen because I know even just in our brief conversation before we started recording today, I'm so intrigued by how you got started and kind of, I love the background, and it's kind of interesting because all of us have a little bit of a psychology background as well, you know, so it's psychology kind of meeting psychic abilities and intuition. And it's just, to me, it's really cool because I think that science backing up a lot of experiences for a lot of people is almost a way to say, you know what, there's more out there than meets the eye.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we read a lot of books, I think, is something that separates us. We're not just in quick internet. We're not all interview. And we go deep. Like when we take on a subject, we go deep. You know, something I'm going to talk about today with the Skinwalkers.
Yeah.
On the episode, or on the Monster Lore Tour, I would say skin and point at Maz, and he would say walkers for me. But I'll take the chance of saying it out loud today.
Oh, man.
Well, it's making me very nervous. I just want to say, because I've heard you don't think it, you don't say it out loud.
Yeah,
so.
that is part of the lore. That is part of the lore. I've had my run-ins with him. I'm honestly not scared of him anymore. I'm not gonna go out of my way to see him again, but I'm not really scared of him anymore.
I mean, now that you've thrown yourself under the bus like that, like, do you want to dive into can you give us any background on what Skinwalkers actually are? And then I'm dying to hear your story.
Yeah. So the general lore behind them, I've been living in Northern Arizona for a long time, in Flagstaff, where I've been for almost 16 years now, specifically in Flagstaff. We're a border town with Navajo Nation. Like there's just as many Native Americans as white people in Flagstaff. So it's immersed in the culture. It really is. Like Flagstaff has an accent that's slightly Navajo. Like everyone from Flagstaff sounds a little bit Navajo. But you stay here long enough and you find the people who are willing to talk about it, you get a lot of stories. But then, I've lived a life where I've actually had a couple of encounters of my own. And that's really why I have that podcast, like in my own personal experiences of things that have no explanation made me far too curious to not go farther and farther into it. So you want to hear my actual Skinwalker story though? Oh, you want to hear what Skinwalkers are?
I was going to say,
got off point.
either direction, but I think a lot of people don't understand what they actually are, which is kind of the fear.
They're basically, to put it in like a common parlance, as it were, they're basically evil sorcerers. The black magic that, is a common term. We don't like the light and dark references for good and bad on Monster Lore Tour because they don't really equate.
I agree.
We came up with the term Sithsorcerer for the bad sorcerer, based on the Sith of Star Wars, the Sithsorcerers. But the Skinwalkers are about as dark as it gets. So basically, it's purposefully allowing yourself to be possessed by some sort of demon entity that allows you to literally change your shape.
That's what I've always thought of is those things as being a shapeshifter. So thank you for the additional information and background.
Right.
Yes.
The lore as I've been given it, again, I'm not a member of the tribe. I have this, secondhand, but I have had extensive conversations with people in the know. They basically have to go through rituals. It basically starts with you have to murder either someone you love or a baby.
Yikes.
Someone in your family, like kill your parents, kill your sibling, kill your own child. Like it gets that dark that fast. You do your ceremony, basically a murder ceremony for that, your sacrificial ceremony, killing the thing you love. It's one of those things. That opens you up to the possession by the evil. You then go out and you find the animal you want to be able to turn into. You kill the animal, you take its skin, you literally put the skin on as you put the head on your head, you put it on like a jacket, like a new skin. You do that ritual. And if you do it all right, that evil you allowed yourself to be possessed by will now allow you to physically take the form of whatever skin that was that you wore. That's why they're called Skinwalkers.
That definition is that's terrible, number one, but yeah. I understand, it kind of makes sense too.
Yeah. And there's a lot of lore behind them. We did an initial 3-parter on them, episodes 3 through 5. Then a friend of ours came on that I actually have another encounter story that is hard. It's really weird. I needed his help to tell it. That's episode 18. And then we did, and then they kind of weave through, especially because Maz started with, that as his first real topic. And it got him on the whole, these guys are just like the shaman I've read. They just, they have these specific shape-changing things that are a little different. But he started connecting, finding things in different parts of the world and different time frames and ages that have all this correlation back to that, because he's finding this global net of shamanism. So basically, in the end, how we see it is they are the evil side of the shaman spectrum. You got your medicine men who are on the good side. The opposite of that is the Skinwalker.
Yeah. I mean, and that actually makes sense. There's such a broad spectrum. Everything,
and it's always a yin yang balance thing. For every piece of good, there's a piece of evil, and it has to be balanced.
Right.
So for every good, powerful medicine man, shaman, whatever it might be, you have to have this evil version of, the Skinwalker or something correlative to it to keep the balance. It's just how the universe seems to work. We would love things to be all good, but
across the board, yes.
Without bad days, good days wouldn't be good days. They'd just be days.
Right.
You know?
That's true.
If you want to get philosophical about it. But
So what was your actual experience? What did it happen in Flagstaff, near Flagstaff?
it was on the res. So my background, I'm let's see. In December, I will have been driving taxi in Flagstaff for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
I did about 8 years in an actual yellow taxi with a CB radio and a paper map before Uber became the thing. It's now called Uber. I still call myself a taxi driver.
I
But
bet you have seen and heard it all.
yeah, and it's different here. This isn't Las Vegas. This is Flagstaff.
Right.
We're in the middle of nowhere. Like, I have a totally different kind of story from big city cab drivers, and especially because we are where we are. And it was in the taxi that this story happened, which is why I need to tell you that.
Okay. But that's
all of my best stories happened in a taxi.
I'm before you dive into your story, I just want you to know, I don't know if you know, I'm in New Hampshire. And so we don't have there taxis and stuff like that. Until Uber and Lyft became really, really, really big, we didn't have, there really wasn't much, but yeah.
I grew up outside of Boston.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, North Reading, Massachusetts.
Oh, I've been there many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but North Reading's not too far from where I am.
Oh, yeah. There you go. I just forget my chronology. So this is a couple years into my cab experience. So this would have been about 2012-ish. So this is a pretty old story at this point, but it has follow-ups. So I worked the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift for 7 straight years in the taxi. Yeah, 777s, lucky stuff. But I during the winter, I was a vampire. I didn't see the sun.
I give you props for that.
Yeah, I still drive mostly nights, but I'm done by like 3 a.m. is the absolute latest I'll go. Usually I'm done by 1. So it's, I'm not nearly as extreme with it anymore. But so for those not familiar with the area here, Flagstaff is kind of the hub of northern Arizona. And the rest of northern Arizona is basically empty space. There's nothing out there. We have the only real hospital north of Phoenix in Arizona. So anyone from anywhere, like basically north of Black Canyon City, if you look at the map, if anything happens, you're going to Flagstaff for the hospital, including the reservation, including the Navajo and Hopi reservation, which is huge. The Navajo reservation's huge. Look at the map. It's by far the biggest reservation in the country. Takes up a really good portion of the state. And we were the main contractor for the hospital when I was driving the taxi. So we would get rides, insurance paid rides for people leaving the hospital at 1:30 in the morning, going literally a 3-hour each way ride out across the reservation to go home. So I was the guy that worked till 7 in the morning. So when these 6-hour long round trips would come in after midnight, I was the guy. So I did these a lot. And back then, it's a little better now, but back then there wasn't a lot of electricity on the res. It's a very different place. Houses are very spread out. There's very little as far as actual towns. You can literally drive, when you're out there at night, the only light you have is your own headlights. You're on a 2-lane strip of asphalt, driving across an empty desert. And if you turn your lights off, you are in the dark. It is black abyss. Like if the stars are, if there's a moon or stars, that can help a little bit, but you are in the darkness. I literally called it the long dark because I'm a Tolkien nerd. But so I get one of these rides one night. I pick up at the hospital. It was 1:30-ish in the morning. And this guy's going way out. He was going out past Chinle, which is way out. It was like a 2.5-hour ride kind of thing each way. So I pick him up. I make sure I got my info right for the paperwork. I make sure he's actually going where they say he's going. And he just hunkers down the back seat. It's typical for people getting out of the hospital in the middle of the night to sleep through the ride. So I just start driving. I'm driving through the dark and basically silence. I have the radio down low. And I'm about 2 hours, maybe a little more into this 2.5-hour ride. So it's like 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. And hitchhiker comes into my headlights. Now, in and of itself, not actually as weird as it sounds to be in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night and see someone hitchhiking. It's a popular thing to hitchhike across the res if you live there. If you got family on the other side of the res, you don't have a car, but you need to get over to your family, You can start hitchhiking and people will pick you up. But sometimes you get stranded overnight somewhere and you sleep in a ditch and you wait till the cars start coming by again in the morning. But this was not a typical hitchhiker. This guy stood out. Big dude. Like he was probably 6.5 feet tall. When I looked at him, I got like professional wrestler, like professional football player, like just big, wide, not fat, but just big. You know what I mean? Blue denim head to toe, what you might call in New Hampshire a Canadian tuxedo. Out here, it's just cowboy. But, blue denim jacket, blue denim shirt, blue denim jeans, big shiny cowboy belt buckle, big blue duffel bag on the ground next to him. And the weirdest part was his face was all blacked out. I got the impression it was Navajo guy with the long hair, and he put it down over his face so you couldn't see his face. Was the impression I got with his thumb out. So I just give him a wide berth. I look at him like, damn, man, that guy's creepy. No wonder nobody picked him up. You know what I mean? But that's all I think about it. I just keep driving. And like 5-ish minutes later, I'm going 65 miles an hour through open desert. And about 5 minutes later, hitchhiker comes into my headlights. Big guy, blue denim head to toe, big shiny belt buckle, big blue duffel bag. Same guy, blacked out face. Same guy. I get out of breath telling this story this day. My spine is tingling right now. Same guy.
It makes me want to walk away from the computer. That's so funny.
I tell this to people on Uber rides. They're trapped in my car as I tell them. Freaks them out. So this time, as I go by him, I kind of like watch him go by over my shoulder. And like, I got the worst chills of my life. Like, literally, my whole body just started shivering. I felt like my spine just turned to ice. My initial reaction in my brain is I am tripping out. I don't know if you're familiar with the trucker term getting black dogged. You see the black dog just before you pass out at the wheel and crash kind of thing. Patrick Swayze made a movie about it like a long time ago. But I felt like I was getting black dogged. I felt like something was like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. I've been driving in the dark too long. I'm starting to trip. And like kind of get a hold of yourself was my initial reaction. As I'm like thinking this, out of my back seat, this guy who hasn't spoken a word since I left the hospital parking lot, he goes, yeah, we see him out here a lot. Don't pick him up.
No.
So my brain boggled. I was like, wait, he saw my hallucination? And then I was like, wait, he saw that? And as I'm trying to process what he just said to me, he points his finger at me and real like aggressive, shaking his finger at me. He goes, but if you see the old lady with the long white hair, you pick her up. I said, okay. And then I was just like, I got to get out of here. I didn't ask any other questions. He didn't say anything else. I just puckered up and was like, I got to get this guy out of my car and get the hell off this res. It's like, I got to get out of here. 15 minutes later, I'm dropping this guy off. I turned around. I'm a professional driver. I go like 3 miles an hour over the speed limit. I did 90 back across that res. The whole time just praying I didn't see anybody. I didn't want to see that dude. I didn't want to see the lady with long white hair. I didn't want to see anybody.
Did you come across anybody?
And no, thankfully I made it off. I literally got out of the car and kissed the ground when I saw the highway because I was, I'm out of there. That was the scariest 2 hours I've ever spent in a car.
I can't even begin to imagine. And my, like you've also piqued my curiosity because I have 2 follow-up questions of this story.
I have 2 follow-up stories to this that are going to answer that question.
More about them? Either individual? Okay.
I'm gonna tell you my follow-up story. So that became my story. When people got in the taxi or now get into the Uber, it's pretty common. It's not all the time, but it's a regular thing that somebody asks you, what's your craziest story? So if I pick someone up and they're taking a long enough ride and they ask me that question, I tell them that story I just told you. And I was doing that for probably close to a decade. And then a few years ago, I pick up a car full of, we're a college town here in Flagstaff. I drive mostly college kids around when I drive the night shift. So common phrase for me, I picked up this car full of college girls. Nothing untoward about it, man. I'm just a taxi driver. And they were doing kind of across town. They were taking like, a 10+ minute ride. And they immediately they get in the car and one of them says, "What's your craziest story?" And I was like, "Oh, cool. You're taking a long enough ride. I can tell my story, right? I'm going to tell you my good story." So I tell him that story. Just as I'm pulling into their apartment complex to drop them off, I hit the point where the guy says, "But if you see the old lady with the long white hair, you pick her up." I stop the car. The girl behind me, there's 4 girls, 1 in front, 3 in the back. The girl right behind me is like, "I'm getting out of here." And she just threw the door open and ran. Like she
That
was
would be me.
freaked out.
Yeah.
But one of the other girls in the back seat, same seat as the guy was in when he said, "If you see the old lady with the long white hair, you pick her up." She says, "Don't be afraid of the lady with the long white hair." Yeah. Yeah, that look that you just did, Stacy. That's it right there.
And you're like,
And this time I was like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" I'm sorry, can I swear on here?
yeah.
You can.
What the fuck
Yeah.
did you just say to me? She says, I'm half Navajo. I grew up on the res. So she like knows this stuff. This is how I get most of my information is conversations in my own car. So she says it took her a minute because she had to like translate into English. She had to come up with an English term to let me know who the old lady was. And what she came up with was, she's essentially your saving grace. If she presents herself to you, she's there to help. But she tests you in that, like, if she had shown herself to me that night, she would have looked like she was in distress on the side of the road. And if you stop and help her, she will help you. If you don't help her, she will not help you. The thing is, she only presents herself to you if the Skinwalkers are after you.
I just got full body chills. Oh my goodness.
That's exactly how she said it to me in the moment, too. So then I said, and this was it took me like a decade, basically, to get confirmation on this. So I looked at her and I said, "So that guy was and before I said the word out loud, she went, "Yes." Because she said it out loud herself. And she was like, "Oh, like I've said too much." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm like, "So he was and she said, "Yes." Then she says, and I'm out from that way and we do see him a lot. And then she just got out of the car and walked away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So that was my confirmation that I full on in the witching hour between 3 and 4 a.m. in the middle of absolute nowhere, in the middle of the long dark of straight up Skinwalker territory, full on. Yeah. And then I learned, if you want some real follow up, I can put some closure on it for you even. In the course of making Monster Lore Tour, see, this is why I started the podcast. I understand this so much better now. I learned that as bad as the Skinwalkers are, people think that like they don't like us going out on the res and like they're protective of the people. It's really they're more concerned about like tribal members who lose the tribal ways. So like all the Navajo who move to Flagstaff and start living the white man life off the res, go back to the res and the Skinwalkers might not like it kind of thing. And their thing is they don't just murder you. They make you sick. They tear you down. They whittle away at your mind and your body and your soul. Their biggest thing is to get on your roof and to sprinkle the powder of dead baby bones down your chimney to curse your house and make you sick, give you cancer and stuff.
That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. They're that bad. But their biggest thing is they are focused on actual tribal members more than invaders. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
And this guy that I picked him up at the hospital. He was getting out of the hospital. He's been sick. And as I'm driving him home, 15 minutes before I get him home on, a 2+ hour ride, all of a sudden there's the Skinwalker presenting himself. And when that guy sees him, he's scared. He's scared. So my thought is, I was just an observer.
Right.
That hitchhiker was there to let that guy know, "Hey man, I know you're back. I'm still here."
No, that's
It was a message to the guy in my back seat, which is why I didn't see anyone after I dropped him off.
right.
If he had been after me, I would have seen him on the way out. You know what I mean?
That's
Right.
I mean, that's terrifying though. Like
Still terrifying.
Yeah.
To be in the middle of that situation was terrifying.
Yes.
That's a good word for it.
Like even listening to the full story with the follow up, like full body chills over here.
Yeah.
And here
But
I'm just
that's
calling in my guardian angels. Please, like, protect me and watch over me, my
yeah.
family, my loved ones.
And my most recent follow up, this story generates stories. The bar I'm a regular at here in Flagstaff, it's a big local regular crowd. And my podcast came up. You know, I got a few guys there that know what I'm doing with it and stuff, have heard this story. And there's one guy there who works out there. He's a EMT type doing, he's all over working on the reservation. So he's all over the reservation all the time. And one day, like a while after I told him that story, that he comes up to me at the bar and he's like, dude, I think one of my coworkers saw your guy. And I'm like, what? One of his coworkers driving the middle of the night out on the east side of the res. It's all on the east side of the res too. Like the farther you get towards the New Mexican border, the weirder it gets. My partner, my co-host Maz, thinks there's a big hub of energy at the Four Corners kind of area. I think it's Shiprock myself, but it's so close together, it's hard to distinguish. Yeah, one of his coworkers was out, same thing, driving in the middle of nowhere, middle of the night, and he saw a hitchhiker, all blue denim, blacked out face, big dude, duffel bag, and he saw him twice.
Did he have a passenger?
He has the same story as me.
Did he have a passenger as well?
I believe he had someone in the back of an ambulance kind of thing. So
that's yeah.
What does that tell you? Yeah, like you only see him when you have a sick tribe member with you.
That's what I immediately thought of.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I am very familiar with the Flagstaff area myself. I did have a child who went to school there.
Oh, at NAU?
At NAU, yeah. And so just going up there, going to the crystal shop, there's a lot of stories in addition to that of it being a very haunted town or a lot of activity there in Flagstaff.
Flagstaff is extremely haunted. Downtown, you don't have to name a building, just downtown Flagstaff. I swear there's a party of ghosts just hanging out, milling around. I don't think they're even locked into one place. There's a series of tunnels under downtown that connects all the original buildings. It was a train days, because we're a railroad town. We're only here because the railroad came through. And it turned into a timber town once they finished building the railroad. But all the old railroad towns will have tunnels connecting all the original buildings. They would connect them all with these tunnels, and there would be one central place where they generated a bunch of steam heat and then pushed it down the tunnels. So in the wintertime, it was like central heating.
Oh, interesting.
For all the main buildings downtown. On the darker side, they were also used to get around town by the Chinese workers because it was too dangerous for them to walk in the streets because people would just beat the crap out of them and stuff. So, it served a couple purposes for them. So those tunnels, I think, are home to a lot of ghosts because
spirits.
I swear they just move around. But then there's like the Hotel Monte Vista has a handful of rooms with very specific ghosts that stay in those rooms. And we're going to be doing an episode on that. Next year, 2026, is actually the centennial celebration of Route 66, the Mother Road.
Oh, cool.
Which runs right through the middle of Flagstaff. Like if you're hanging out downtown Flagstaff, you're on Route 66. And Hotel Monte Vista is an old school Route 66 thing. So when we get into, we're going to do a bunch of like Route 66 related episodes, I think, next year. And we'll get into all the ghosts of Flagstaff when we do that.
I do recall you saying, though, that you had a huge story, like one other of your other stories that you share often is a spirit story, though.
This actually goes back to my college days. Equally as important in my creating of Monster Lore Tour, though. These two stories are big impetus for the podcast, which is, why I like to make them kind of my premieres. This is back east. I went to school in Rhode Island. Like I'm from the Boston area originally, and went to school in Rhode Island for a while and then back in Mass for a while. I was kind of a journeyman when it came to college and really in life in general. So I'm going to let people know a little bit about how I was back then. So it was, second semester of freshman year. Me and a handful of friends decided that we couldn't drink every day anymore. I'm Gen X. I was in college in the 90s. You know what I mean? we decided to make Tuesdays like sober Tuesdays, but we couldn't just, we didn't want to sit around and do nothing or study or anything like that. That would be silly. So we made it Adventure Tuesdays, and we would go out and go to, adventurous type places on Tuesday night, but at night. It was like night tours. Okay. One of these times we went to Fort Adams. I don't know if you're familiar. Being from New Hampshire, you've probably heard of it. It's an old war fort. I believe it was Civil War times that they built it. I always get the Revolutionary and Civil War forts mixed up along the coast back there, but Fort Adams is one of those old school, early day American military forts. It wasn't far from where we were going to school. It was at the time totally closed down, fenced with razor wire, federal property, no trespassing signs.
And naturally you did, right?
So we brought a fire blanket and we threw it over the razor wire and climbed over the fence. We were very non-destructive. No one would ever know we were there if I didn't tell you. We didn't bring spray paint. We didn't break anything. We didn't take souvenirs. It's same way I hike, take only pictures, leave only footsteps. But it was cool, it was adventurous. We made it extra special that we weren't supposed to be there, So there's like 8 of us that go on this trip. And when you go into the fort, you can actually look at this. I've looked at it on like Google Earth or, satellite maps, and you can kind of see the setup where you go in the main gate and there's this big path that like goes around. It's almost like the Pentagon, but it's only one building. Like it's a big, I think it was actually hexagonal, but almost like a circle of a building with a big courtyard in the middle and then a path on the outside. And you start on the outside path, you go down, you walk through a big archway to get into the courtyard, and then there's doors for each room. Each room is like big section and opens up, like big door to the outside, and then big arched window facing the courtyard with like a kind of waist high brick wall at the bottom of the window. But the cool thing about it, and why we were really there, is because it has tunnels too. I don't know if you're aware of this, but all the old New England war forts from back in that day, there's a tunnel system connecting them all that is purposefully maze-like. If you know the map, it's the final egress. If the fort is under siege, the enemy's coming over the walls, whoever's left can go down into the tunnels, and if they know the map, they can get to the next fort. If the enemy tries to follow them, not knowing the map, they're most likely going to get lost in the darkness, never to be seen again. Like that's how this tunnel system is built. So we go down to the tunnels. We brought one flashlight. Guy in front gets to hold the flashlight. It was wild down there. Like it was all dry, and then all of a sudden you'd see water. So you'd go back and cut down this way, and then you'd go down. There's no water there, and then you come back up, and there's water. It was really weird. There was a boat down there and stuff, like an old rowboat. Yeah, it was wild. And then we were like checking out the rooms, and it was interesting. It was in very different stages of disrepair, because some of the rooms you looked in and they looked almost fine. Like you could tell the floor was old and whatnot, but they looked pretty good. Other rooms you look in and literally there was no floor. It would just drop 50 feet straight down into the tunnel below. So it was like, you didn't know what you were going to get from room to room. And then we were, messing around the courtyards. I remember it was a full moon night. Like you could see like it was daylight out in the courtyard. There's stairs, you get up on the roof. So we were up looking at the ocean. We kind of did the rounds. We ended up sitting on some scaffolding that was against one of the walls in the courtyard. I'm like, all right, I think we kind of did it. Maybe we should think about getting out of here. But then we look over in the window to the room right next to the exit where we would have to go back out to the front to get over the fence. We see 2 figures standing there. Like I said, it was a full moon. Like you could see that there were 2 people standing in this window. And I'm like, uh-oh. And of course, first thought, cops are here.
Busted. Yeah.
Yep.
Busted.
I mean, that's it. That would be anyone's
Busted.
thought. Yes.
Yeah. So then we're like, well, if the cops are here, they can come get us. We'll just hang out till we have no choice. Basically, is what we think at that point. But then we sit there for like 5 minutes looking at these guys, looking at us, and nobody's moving. So then we're like, this isn't what cops do. They would just be running in here with flashlights and guns drawn kind of shit. And then we're like, okay, so is this like homeless guys that live in here or something? And if so, are they just like curious or are they a little stabby? And do we have to worry about it? You know what I mean? So we're like, and this whole time we're like, what do we do? What do we do? Do we just leave and hope nothing happens? Do we stay here? Do we, and finally, and the whole time, these two guys not moving, just standing there staring at us. So finally, me and one of my buddies who's there go, okay, we're going to go check it out. You guys stay here. We're going to walk over there and see what this is. If, it turns ugly, you got our back. So we start walking over nice and calm, very unthreatening. And just as we start getting close enough to start seeing some real detail on these guys, and we're both like, oh, it is the cops, because they had uniforms on. They had the hat, and you could tell they were uniformed, especially the hat. But just as we're getting the detail enough to be like, oh, no, it is the cops, they duck down below that waist-high wall that I was talking about.
Yeah.
They just straight down disappear. And we're like, that's not what cops do. Like, is this crazy homeless guys that want to get stabby?
That are wearing uniforms?
But they're in uniforms.
Yeah.
But that's not what cops do. They don't suddenly hide from you, right? So now we're like, what the hell is going on? Like, we're more confused than we were before we went over there. So we kind of, goad each other, and we got to go look in this room. Where did they go? We have to see, So we slowly creep up the last 20 feet or so, and we look over the wall, and there is no floor in that room. It drops 50 feet straight down into the tunnels.
I honestly, before you said that, I was wondering if this was going to be one of those rooms that you had just explained didn't have a floor.
Yeah. So me and my buddy, our hearts drop, and we're like, we got to get out of here.
Did you
turn around, we start running back towards our friends. They see us freaking out, and they all start running towards us. And as they're getting closer, we just turn around like, we got to get out of here. And we just run. Everybody's freaked. Like, this is high blood pressure moments. Yeah. Like, we are freaking out. I almost cut myself open on the razor wire. I tore my work boot and my jeans going over the fence because I was just in such a hurry to get out of there. We get out to the cars, and everybody's just, huffing and puffing, and start catching our breath. And people are like, what the hell was that? What happened? Who was that? And we just looked down, and we're like, there was no floor in that room. And everybody just went white. And we're like, let's get the hell out of here. There were 8 of us. There were 8 of us that saw that.
Shit moment.
Yeah. And that's what impresses me the most about it, is there were 8 of us that all saw that. Like, I've had weird stuff happen to just me. That I don't really like telling those stories because I don't know what that was.
Right.
Was that just me? You know what I mean? Was I having a shamanic vision? Was that a real physical entity? Was, whatever it may be. I like to tell the stories that are verified. The guy in the back seat telling me don't pick him up, that's verification.
Right.
Having 7 friends who all just saw the same thing as you, that's verification. That to me is the good stories. You know what I mean? The funny thing is Fort Adams has been remodeled. It is now open to public tours, and they do ghost tours at night.
Oh, I absolutely probably is why I know the name.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I've been joking with Michelle and Carissa. I just combined your names. Marissa.
Ooh, if you guys were a power couple, it would be Marissa.
Yeah.
I joke around because they want to come up to New England and go ghost hunting. And they've said a few times, Stacy, find a place. And I'm like, throw a rock. Throw a rock.
Yeah, with the history of that, go to the Hockomock.
The Hockomock?
Hockomock Swamp. Episode 30, 31 or 32. I think it's 32 of Monster Lore Tour, Bridgewater Triangle Solved. You need to go to Hockomock Swamp and yell that black shaman's name for me and see what happens.
Yeah, probably not.
Unless you tell us what happens before we try it.
I don't know. That's the thing. I think I can summon him, but the black sachem, that's what he was. He was a sachem. King Philip's War and all that, man. It's a great story. That's probably my favorite haunted legend of New England is the Hockomock Swamp.
Now, Jeremy, you're pretty impressive. When you're recalling your episodes, you're like, oh, that was episode 32 or episode 2 and 3. I'm just impressed by that too, as well as your stories. But
I do literally all of the post-production for both of my podcasts. I'm not generally OCD, but being a producer, I'm very OCD about my process. I remember my list. And I can't do it with every episode, but there's also like landmark episodes on MLT that stand out in my brain. That Bridgewater Triangle one, that's some of Maz's best work right there.
I'm gonna have to look into it because I've never heard of the honkamonk, so I'm curious. So
it's the Pukwudgies. You know the Pukwudgies?
I've heard that term.
They're little oompa loompa kind of things. They're pretty wild, but they tie into it's another one of those kind of global. It ties into things in other places that seems like you're looking at the same, basically people are talking about the same thing. They're just giving it different names because they're in different places with different languages and stuff,
Not to dive too deep because we're actually running out of time, unfortunately, but isn't that like if you look at theology or a lot of stories across the board, a lot of similarities in stories that you can kind of draw with different names, different language, different descriptions, but typically such similarities that you can see those lines crossing. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Give it a name,
Jeremy, I know one of the things that we had talking about, and because we're out of time, we're not going to be able to, is the time and that whole theory that you kind of know more information about. So my question for you is, would you be willing to come back and have, that conversation in the future?
100%. 100%. Awesome. Yeah, it came from listening to your reincarnation episode there. And you were trying to conceive of, the true nature of time, which is a very difficult thing. I'm only into it because I have literally for the last 30 years been a reader of people like Brian Greene and Michio Kaku and, that whole genre. And I've been trying to wrap my mind, actively trying to wrap my mind around the true nature of true time for 3 decades. I think I'm pretty much there. I'm not a scientist. I'm a philosopher. I don't have the math, but the theories are, I think I get it. And there are certain key points where somebody finally said it the right way. And I was like, oh, I get it. And I can tell you those points specifically in a further conversation.
Definitely have to have you back because that is that piqued my interest as well.
Whenever you're ready.
Awesome.
I'm around.
Well, Jeremy, where can listeners find you?
So Monster Lore Tour, we are on a bit of a hiatus right now, but we're up to 84 episodes on the audio platforms. Our YouTube is up to we started our YouTube a little later, remastered the earlier episodes. So if you're looking to start fresh, start at the beginning with Monster Lore Tour, YouTube is actually the best place to go because the first few episodes will sound much better than on the audio platforms. Spotify and Apple Podcasts and iHeart and Amazon, you name it. And I also have now my second podcast. It's a totally different thing, but Healthcare Uprising, about innovations in healthcare with a friend of mine who's been in the healthcare industry for over 20 years. I'm actually maybe going to ask Carissa if she wants to come on that one as well as the hypnotherapist because we haven't talked to anyone in that field yet.
Yeah.
She was already on Monster Lore Tour. If maybe get her on the other one as well.
And she would love that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We're everywhere. Monster Lore Tour. That's LORETOUR. It's it rhymes, but they're not spelled the same.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've listened to you guys a lot. Actually, I've become definitely a fan of the 3 Cups. I just call it 3 Cups and a Dash. That's my shorthand for it. And actually, it will be good if we can have Carissa on for the time conversation because it actually feeds back into some of the stuff we talked about in her interview on Monster Lore Tour, which I believe was episode 80.
Awesome.
It was. And it's a great episode. So listeners, go check that out.
Oh, that was a great conversation. I really enjoyed that a lot. Yeah. I'll stop rambling. Thanks for having me on. And just let me know when you want to do the time conversation.
Okay. That sounds really good. Well, Stacy, do you want to close this episode out?
It's going to be weird without Carissa, but I'm going to say stay classy.
Stay sassy and badassy.
Stay a little badassy.
Yes, I like that. Thank you so much. Until next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of 3 Cups and a Dash of Spirituality. If you like what you heard, please know that we have a full library of episodes now available on your favorite podcasting platform. You can listen to it now, or you can download it to listen to later. Also, if you'd like to give us a review, we'd appreciate it. We love connecting with listeners, and thank you in advance.